Japan's tiniest cars weren't always as innocent as they looked. Behind boxy frames and grandma-friendly styling hid turbocharged secrets. One of these could outrun a Prelude, yet looked like it belonged in a retirement home. Let's get into it. Number 10. Subaru R2S, 2003-2010. A car that looked like it belonged in a retirement home's parking lot, yet could keep up with hot hatches twice its size. Soft curves, tall glass, polite personality, and a secret under the hood. At first glance, the Subaru R2S was nothing more than a modern K capsule, built for comfort, convenience, and quiet trips through narrow streets. Released in 2003, it was the rebirth of a classic name, but this time aimed squarely at the eco-conscious crowd. With its tall profile and bug-eyed charm, most assumed it was just another commuter. Most had no idea what it could really do. Because Subaru, known for its all-wheel drive brutes, couldn't help themselves. They slipped in a supercharged 660cc EN07X engine tuned to the legal limit, 64 horsepower, 103 Newton-meter of torque, and paired it with their ICVT transmission. In a car weighing just 850 kilograms, that meant real acceleration, enough to catch up to cars a full class above. From 0 to 60 kilometers per hour, it was right on the heels of a Suzuki Swift Sport, but it didn't make noise about it. The supercharger, barely audible. The styling, still soft and unassuming. You'd never know until it left you behind at the lights. And just when it seemed like the perfect sleeper, cracks showed. The CVT, while smooth, dulled some of the fun. The handling was decent, not great. And despite its punch, it never truly escaped its city car image. Still, it stuck in people's memories. Why? Because for a brief moment, this smiling, slow-looking K car flashed its teeth. And that's just number 10. The next one, it looked even slower. But what it did to unsuspecting rivals, you'll want to see that. Number 9. Mitsubishi Dangan ZZ, 1989 to 1993. It looked like a shopping cart with headlights. Light, upright, completely forgettable, until it wasn't. By the early 90s, Japan's K-car market was crowded. Everyone was chasing economy, not adrenaline. But Mitsubishi, quietly, almost defiantly, decided to slip something radical into the mix. And they hid it inside one of the plainest silhouettes on the road. This was the Mitsubishi Dangan ZZ, sold from 1989 to 1993. It looked exactly like you'd expect a K-car to look back then. Tall, square, polite. But Dangan means bullet in Japanese, and this one lived up to the name. Under the hood sat a 657cc DOHC turbocharged engine with a bizarre twist. 5 valves per cylinder. That's right, 15 valves total in a K-car. Even exotic sports cars were still catching up to that tech. The result? A full 64 horsepower, 98 Newton-meters of torque, and a curb weight of under 700 kilograms. Pair that with a snappy 5-speed manual, and you had something no one saw coming. From 0 to 100 kilometers per hour, it could hit it in under 9.5 seconds in 1990. In K terms, that was jet fuel. But the best part? It didn't flaunt it. No wings, no flares, just a basic commuter body and steel wheels. You'd pass it on the street and never give it a second thought, until it pulled away from you. Fast. Still, it wasn't perfect. The suspension was tuned more for stiffness than comfort, making rough roads a pain. And that 5-valve head, incredible when dialed in, but it needed love, maintenance, and a mechanic who knew what they were doing. Yet, despite its flaws, the Dangan ZZ made a statement no other K had at the time. Performance didn't need a costume. And coming up next, another car that took that exact idea and flipped it on its head. If this one was a bullet, the next was a butter-smooth sleeper with a turbocharged kick. Number 8. Honda Z Turbo, 1998 to 2002. Too tall, too narrow, too weird to take seriously. People laughed when it pulled up until it pulled away. At the tail end of the 90s, Honda reimagined one of its quirkiest classics, the Honda Z. Not as a nostalgic throwback, but as a futuristic city runabout. When it launched in 1998, it looked like something between a space pod and a jelly bean on stilts. Tiny wheels, tall greenhouse. Some even called it the KSUV that forgot it was a car. But under that oddly upright body lived a heart that didn't get the memo. Tucked in the rear was a mid-mounted 656cc turbocharged engine, making the legal K limit of 64 horsepower and 93 newton-meters of torque. But what truly set it apart wasn't just the layout. It was the midship, all-wheel drive setup, one of the only of its kind in K history. That meant better balance, sharper reflexes, and grip in places where other K cars scrambled. Pair that with a lightweight body, under 900 kilograms, and the Z Turbo could quietly pull off 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in just over 10 seconds, which didn't sound blistering until you remembered this was a one-box K crossover from the 90s. With the engine behind you and torque heading to all four wheels, it felt more like a tiny rally car disguised as a washing machine. Still, it was far from perfect. The CVT transmission sapped some of the fun, and fuel economy wasn't as impressive as its rivals. Not to mention its looks never really grew on the public. Too strange, too tall, too niche, but those who drove it, they knew. This thing moved. And with its rear engine layout, it had more in common with a Porsche 911 than any other K car on the street. Next up, a car that did look the part of a grandma's grocery getter, yet turned into a track day surprise when the boost kicked in. Number 7. Suzuki Alto Works 1998 to 2000. Most people thought it was just a facelift, a cosmetic update on a worn-out hatchback. But this thing had a secret. It was the last of a dying breed, and it refused to go quietly. By 1998, the Kai car performance wars were cooling off. Regulations tightened, turbocharged hatchbacks were vanishing. And yet Suzuki gave the world one last hurrah before shutting the factory gates. The Alto Works icy looked like any other economy hatchback at a glance. Rounded edges, modest wheels, bland headlights. But behind that generic exterior was something far more defiant. This was a turbocharged, intercooled 658 cubic DOHC inline 3, tuned right to the Kai limit, 64 horsepower and about 100 newton-meters of torque. Weighing in at under 740 kilograms, it had the power-to-weight ratio of a much larger car. The IC stood for injection engine, and combined with a slick 5-speed manual and optional full-time all-wheel drive, it could rocket from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in under 9 seconds, easily outpacing rivals that looked twice as serious. More importantly, it felt raw. Responsive throttle, tight steering, the boost hit with urgency, pushing the little box forward like it had something to prove. It wasn't just fast, it was aggressive, in the way only a cornered underdog can be. But that fight came with trade-offs. Cabin noise was loud, ride quality was stiff, and the styling, well, it wouldn't win any beauty contests. Yet for those in the know, this was the swan song of an era, the last true Alto Works to carry that rebellious, turbocharged spirit before Suzuki tamed the badge. And the next car? It wore a family-friendly badge and had the stance of a toaster. But once the turbo spooled, it left far more than crumbs behind. Like stories like this? Hit that subscribe button. We're just getting warmed up. Number 6. Daihatsu Move Custom Turbo RS, 2002 to 2006. From a distance, it looked like someone modded a bread box. Tall, narrow, and borderline dorky. It blended into school parking lots and retirement homes, but stomped the throttle, and this one moved like its name promised. The Daihatsu Move Custom Turbo RS, sold from 2002 to 2006, might be one of the most underappreciated K performers of its era. It was the kind of car you'd see being driven cautiously through city traffic and never suspected had a heart built to hustle. Sitting under the hood was a 660cc DOHC turbocharged 3-cylinder, putting out the regulation's 64 horsepower and around 103 newton-meter of torque. But the trick wasn't brute force, it was weight and gearing. With a mass of just over 850 kilograms and a smartly tuned CVT or 4-speed auto, it delivered surprisingly responsive pull from low revs. On paper, a K-box. In reality, a downtown dart. It didn't waste time with flashy wings or aggressive styling. Instead, it sharpened where it counted. Stiffer suspension in the RS trim, tighter steering, wider tires. The Move Custom Turbo RS became one of the most balanced tallboy K cars you could get, capable of weaving through traffic, climbing hills with surprising ease, and putting lesser compacts on notice at the lights. Sure, the upright stance gave it more body roll than a Mira or Copen, And the boxy shape wasn't doing it any favors at highway speeds. But for city bursts and mountain corners, it had the guts and the grip to embarrass plenty of real cars. Next up, we're going from squared off to sneakily elegant. Think luxury styling with a boost where you'd least expect it. Number 5. Mazda AutoZam Carol Mady Turbo, 1992 to 1994. A name like Mady doesn't exactly scream horsepower. In fact, it sounds more like something sold at a department store cosmetics counter. But behind the dainty badge and bubbly design was a car built to mess with expectations. In the early 90s, Mazda's AutoZam division was experimenting. The Carol Mady Turbo was supposed to be the stylish, upper-class alternative for city drivers, especially women. It had pastel paint options, fancy upholstery, a cutesy fascia, but someone in the back room must have had different plans, because this car came turbocharged and ready to throw hands. Underneath the charm sat a 660cc turbocharged SOHC 3-cylinder, producing 64 horsepower and around 92 Newton-meters of torque, mated to a lightweight body, just over 700 kilogram, and a tight 5-speed manual. It launched with urgency most drivers didn't expect from something that looked like it should come with a makeup mirror in the glove box. 0 to 100 kilometers an hour, around 9 seconds, in a car shaped like a marshmallow. But that wasn't the only trick up its ruffled sleeve. The Mady Turbo came with surprisingly competent suspension tuning, offering quick turn-in and stable handling for urban corners. Inside, it was loaded for its time. Power windows, fancy trim, even options like ABS and a sunroof. Still, the car had its quirks. That soft styling didn't just mask its performance, it also gave zero clue about its true potential. And while the interior was plush, it wasn't exactly built to withstand aggressive driving over time. Torque steer could rear its head, especially under boost, and parts support today? Let's just say it vanished quicker than the AutoZam brand itself. From here on out, the cars get meaner, the faces stay friendly, and the lies get faster. Number 4. Suzuki Wagon RR, 1998 to 2003. It looked like something your grandpa might drive to get groceries. But plant your foot down, and suddenly it was pulling away from cars twice its size. The Suzuki Wagon RR didn't care what you thought. It was busy going fast. Between 1998 and 2003, Suzuki quietly dropped a performance sleeper into Japan's urban jungle. The Wagon RR, with its tall, boxy profile and delivery van silhouette, wasn't winning any beauty contests. But Suzuki knew that performance didn't have to wear a racing stripe. So they took the K-class limits and ran wild with them. Power came from a turbocharged 660cc DOHC inline 3, producing 64 horsepower and up to 103 Newton-meters of torque. It was how the power was delivered that caught people off guard. Thanks to a clever intercooler setup and featherweight body, around 850 kilograms, this mini brick could clock 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in about 9 seconds, with a sharp low-end punch that surprised more than a few unsuspecting drivers at red lights. And while the outside said school run, the inside whispered street spec. Bucket seats, sporty trim, even a rear spoiler, subtle, but there. Some trims offered full-time all-wheel drive, and the suspension was tuned just tight enough to stay composed during spirited city drives. This was Suzuki being cheeky, and they pulled it off. But make no mistake, it wasn't flawless. That tall roofline made high-speed stability questionable, and aggressive cornering brought enough body roll to remind you what kind of car you were really in. Still, it held its own, quietly, confidently, and without breaking the K-car rules. And trust us, the top 3 on this list, they only get faster, weirder, and harder to believe. So if you're into cars that break rules without breaking the bank, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Number 3. Daihatsu Mira TRXX Avanzado R L502S, 1994 to 1997. You'd never guess it from the badge, but this Mira wasn't here to play nice. It wore the same compact shell seen on every corner in 90s Japan, but under the hood, it was punching way above its class. The Daihatsu Mira TRXX Avanzado R L502S didn't just flirt with performance, it committed. Built between 1994 and 1997, this was Daihatsu at its most rebellious. Sure, it still met K regulations, but they pushed every limit they could. Then wrapped it all in a car that looked like it should be parked outside a dentist's office. Let's talk numbers. This featherweight housed a 660cc turbocharged DOHC inline-4, yes, 4 cylinders in a K car, producing the regulation max 64 horsepower, but with tons of mid-range punch and up to 100 Nm of torque. Paired to a tight 5-speed manual and weighing just over 700 kilograms, the Avanzato R could sprint from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in under 9 seconds. Add a tuned suspension, optional AWD, and even a limited slip diff, and suddenly this city commuter became a secret track toy. But it wasn't all spec sheets and surprises. The Avanzato R featured rally-inspired touches, hood scoops, aero bits, even digital instrumentation in some variants. Yet it somehow avoided looking too aggressive. It still looked like a Mira. That's what made it dangerous. Of course, no sleeper's perfect. Parts today are scarce, and finding one unmolested by tuning culture is becoming a challenge. Still, what would you rather drive? A slow car that looks fast, or this, a fast car that no one sees coming? What's your pick? Would you daily something like this, or does subtle speed just not do it for you? Drop a comment and let me know. Only 2 left, and they're both capable of embarrassing cars that cost 5 times as much. Number 2, Honda Today RS, RSZ. It was the car your aunt might have driven to pick up dry cleaning. Quiet, harmless, forgettable. But the Honda Today RS and RSZ weren't made to blend in. They were built to blur lines. In the late 90s, Honda slipped something into the K-High lineup that didn't raise eyebrows, until it started pulling ahead of traffic. The Today RS and later the RSZ may have looked like a mild-mannered city pod, but under the surface, this thing was tuned for more than just errands. At its core was a 660cc inline-3, but Honda being Honda, they wrung out every drop of potential. With 64 horsepower and up to 94 Nm of torque, it wasn't just about numbers, it was the way it revved. Mated to a slick 5-speed manual and weighing just under 700 kilograms, this featherweight had a 0 to 100 kilometers per hour around 9 seconds, making it one of the quickest in its class. In the right hands, it could seriously surprise cars that assumed otherwise. And then there was the chassis. Honda gave the Today RSZ tighter suspension, upgraded brakes, and a driving feel that was more mini hot hatch than budget grocery getter. It sat low, cornered flat, and never felt cheap behind the wheel. It was all very subtle. No flashy body kits, no oversized wings, just clean lines, a discreet stance, and a drivetrain with real intent. But that stealth had trade-offs. Cabin space was tight, and the ride, while sharp, wasn't kind to rough city roads. Still, for anyone looking to fly under the radar and still have fun in traffic, the Today RS was Honda's secret handshake. Only 1K car left, and it's probably the last one you'd expect to keep up with a Civic C. Number 1, Daihatsu Copen L880K. A cute convertible with round headlights and a soft personality. Most wrote it off the moment they saw it, but that's exactly what made it dangerous. The Daihatsu Copen L880K, launched in 2002, looked like it belonged at a beach resort or parked outside a cafe, not lining up against sports coupes. But under its charming shell was a platform engineered with surprising precision. Daihatsu didn't just build a Kai car for sunny weekends. They built a sleeper dressed in a smile. At the heart sat a 660cc turbocharged inline-4, JB-DET, spitting out the class max 64 horsepower and 105 Nm of torque. But what gave it teeth wasn't just the numbers, it was how they worked together. The car weighed just over 830 kilograms, and when paired with the slick 5-speed manual, it could launch from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in just under 9 seconds. Quick for its size, sure, but what set it apart was how it handled. Thanks to a low center of gravity, tight suspension geometry, and proper chassis tuning, the Copen carved corners like a car twice its price. It didn't understeer like many front-drive K cars. It bit back, clung to corners, and responded like a go-kart with manners. Even better, it had a power retractable hardtop, making it both a coupe and a convertible, a novelty few expected in a K-size package. But here's the twist. That top added weight and the automatic variant dulled its edge. You had to pick the right spec to get the full experience. And yet, when you did, what you got wasn't just a stylish toy. It was a micro-sized roadster that could leave much larger cars stunned in the rear view. If you've been enjoying this journey through Japan's most underrated rockets, make sure to subscribe. We've got even more hidden gems coming your way. Which one of these K-car assassins would you take for a stealthy late-night run? No noise, no clout, just pure shock value. Drop your pick in the comments, hit that subscribe, and stick around.